When you go online, everyone is telling you to apply to the same jobs: software engineer, AI engineer, data science, cybersecurity. And don't get me wrong, those jobs are very important, but they're also saturated as well. And that's why I'm creating this episode. If you're looking for something a bit different from the most talked about jobs and less saturated, then this is the episode for you. Now, I'm not going to lie to you all or waste your time. These are not the jobs you get by doing one tech certification. It's not going to cut it. But these are jobs that are worth your investment, especially if you're looking beyond the salary and looking to do something that is impactful, cutting edge, and something that will be here for years to come. Welcome to the Tech Unlock podcast, where we demystify emerging technologies and give you the keys to unlock your successful tech career. I'm your host, Grace McJones. Let's unlock the future together. Welcome to the Tech Unlock podcast. I'm your host, Grace McJones. In today's episode of the podcast, I'm going to talk about 5 overlooked, high paying tech jobs that people are not talking about. And there's a reason why they're not talking about it or making content about it. But it is very important that you start looking at these roles because they're shaping the future that we're all going to live in very, very soon. Disclaimer: this episode is not sponsored. I don't have a course to sell to you at the end. This is purely focused on helping you future proof your career within tech. It's based on research, it's based on data, and also part of my curiosity, part of my experience I've had in tech over the last 6 years, whether that's within the work that I do as a cloud engineer or doing 100 episodes of this podcast. So I hope that you take the time to learn what I'm about to share with you today and it helps you somehow within your tech career or your job searching process. So let's dive right in. Starting at number 5, one of the most overlooked tech job roles that no one really talks about is being a tech lawyer. Obviously, being a lawyer is not easy, and that's why people don't talk about it. But I feel like this is important to discuss because there's a lot of evolving and emerging technologies that a lot of companies and even government entities don't understand how to regulate. Being a tech lawyer is something that we need people to start looking into because it's also high paying, but also it's in an intersection of emerging tech, policy, and governmental change. So, what does a tech lawyer do? A tech lawyer specializes in legal matters related to technology, including intellectual property, data privacy, cybersecurity, risk management, and so much more. As technology rapidly evolves, the legal frameworks governing it must adapt accordingly. Now, a common misconception about being a tech lawyer is that you have to be highly technical. This is not necessarily true. While technical knowledge is beneficial and needed in some aspect, what's more important is the ability to understand how technology impacts legal principles and society. Many successful tech lawyers come from traditional legal backgrounds but develop specialization in tech related areas over time. So, a few scenarios of how a tech lawyer might work within the tech ecosystem is basically number one, when there's a new product that is ready to be launched, that lawyer makes sure that the company meets the requirement for when it comes to legal usage of the user's data. I'm sure most of you have seen terms and conditions whenever you're using an app, and I'm sure most of you haven't read it. I don't know if anyone on here has ever read the whole terms and condition. If you have, kudos to you. You get a cookie, not from me, but from somewhere else. But most people don't read it. But lawyers are involved in making sure that all the terms and conditions for how the company is using the data and also the customer agreeing to use that platform, everything is transparent, or I guess to the best of their abilities, and so that the company is not liable if something happens. So it's a high stakes job, but I feel like it's also one that has high rewards because you are working at the intersection of tech, policy, and just a sector that has a lot of influence on how we use technology. So on that note, I do want to share that the average salary for a tech lawyer is around 120 to 180, depending on where you live and depending on what your specialty is. All throughout this episode, the salary is going to range based on where you live and based on your experience, but most of them are in the 6 figure range. And I'm sure that's not shocking because in tech, obviously, it's high paid, but also, let's be honest, high stress and high stakes. And that's just something important to keep in mind. Tech law offers so many benefits. First, the demand for tech savvy legal professionals continue to grow as technology becomes more and more integrated into our everyday lives. According to ZipRecruiter, the job market for tech lawyers is actively growing every year. Some skills needed to thrive in this role is obviously analytical and critical thinking. I mentioned earlier that you definitely have to have a law degree because you can't practice law without a law degree. Lastly, and obviously, excellent communication skill is needed in order to thrive as a tech attorney or a tech lawyer because you want to be able to communicate legal terminologies to your clients, which obviously is someone that's going to be in the tech industry. And then also you want to be able to understand tech concepts or explain to those who are in the legal industry. And so being able to understand, communicate effectively is going to help you thrive in this role. When it comes to AI, I know right now that there is actually a startup called Harvey that is positioned to help lawyers with, day-to-day tasks when it comes to doing research, understanding some of the laws within different states. And so AI is already everywhere. And I feel like if you're someone into tech law, this is an exciting space to learn about what is emerging, but also to be in the intersection of amazing things happening within the tech industry. Now, of course, I've talked about a benefit, but no job is without its challenges. Despite the benefits of working as a tech lawyer, there's also a few challenges I want you to be aware of. First of all, the legal landscape for technology changes rapidly, requiring constant learning and adaptation. Laws and regulation often lag behind technological innovation, creating uncertainty. So you want to make sure that you're on top of your game and you're learning as much as possible. Another drawback is obviously going to law school. Going to law school is time consuming and it's very expensive. So if you're looking for something quick and easy and trying to get into the tech market, this might not be for you. But if you're looking for a long-term solution or trying to pivot into something that's more maybe mentally interesting to you, if you have the time, if you have the capacity, if you have the support from those around you, I think it's something worth looking into. All right, so moving on number 4 on the list, we have game developer, game designer. Now, I know a lot of people have some thoughts about game development, game design, and I'm putting them together because I'm just talking about the gaming industry in a sense. And a lot of places in tech have had layoffs, including the game industry, which is not that big compared to other industries. But something particular that I wanted to share with you all is that when it comes to gaming, there's still a lot of opportunities, but not in the way people look at it. So I want to touch on that today. So, what does a game designer do or a game developer do? A game developer designs, programs, and tests video games for computers, consoles, mobile devices, or virtual reality platforms. This role combines technical programming skills with creative storytelling and artistic design. This is a sweet spot for someone who is creative but also wants to be technical. Yes, it's going to take more getting into this industry because a lot of the opportunities that are here are a blended role. So you don't have to know how to program to get in, obviously being good at C++ plus plus or C sharp, but also if you're someone creative and you love design, maybe 3D or animation, this is something worth looking into. Despite current layoffs, the gaming industry is still growing. In 2024, the revenue for the worldwide gaming market was estimated at almost 455 billion US dollars, with the mobile gaming market generating an estimated 98.7 billion dollars in total. So there's a lot of money in the gaming industry, but there's also a misconception I want to address. A major misconception is that game development is all about playing games or only just building games, but in reality, it involves rigorous coding, problem solving, and creative collaboration, like I mentioned earlier. The development process for modern games often takes years and involves teams of dozens or even hundreds of professionals. And most of that is changing now, obviously, since we have the help of AI. But at the same time, there are other industries that are using gaming or gamification in their products to help grow user retention and user engagement. A lot of people have opportunities to look at these companies instead of just focusing solely on gaming studios. The average salary of a game developer ranges from around $105,000 to around $115,000. To thrive or succeed in this role, you definitely want to have a strong development background, developing in C++, C Sharp for Unity. You also want to have creative problem solving abilities, a deep understanding of game theory, and you want to be familiar with popular engines like Unity or Unreal Engine. There's obviously so much more that it takes to thrive. I'm just hoping that this few points can help pick your curiosity so you can do further research and see if this route is the route that you want to go in your career. Now, I'm going to be honest, there are a few drawbacks, working in gaming. I'm sure most of you already know some of them, but let's dive into a couple. First, the industry is known for intense competition and potentially long work hours, especially during crunch periods and times before major releases. There's a lot of pressure on engineers to execute right and to also get the game out on time. Secondly, job stability can be affected by project success rates with layoffs sometimes following through underperforming game release. Now, with all that being said, it's important to note that working as a game developer does not mean you have to work at the large gaming studios like Riot Games, Epic Games, Nintendo, all those big gaming studios. I think it's important to look at other companies who are using game theory or gamification to help drive their products, like I talked about earlier. So, if that's Duolingo, where they're looking for people with a gaming background to help enhance the games that they have in their apps for learning new languages, definitely look into that. I want you to be open minded about this because I do know that the gaming industry sometimes can be a lot. It can be toxic, and the jobs are a bit competitive. But I want people to look outside of just big tech or big gaming studios so you can find what suits your skills and also what suits what you're trying to gain from this industry. And so I hope that was helpful. And let's look into the next job role. All right, y'all, we're at our top three. Coming at number three, we have quantum computer researcher or scientist. Y'all, like I said, none of these jobs were easy. None of these jobs were easy. And this one is very interesting to me because I feel like it's very emerging and there is so much bet and speculation that we could be literally decades away from seeing the benefits of quantum computers. But from the major announcement that Microsoft made about marijuana one oh mario mario marijuana y'all, I don't know how to say this. Maro marijuana marijuana one, is that how you say it?
Now is one of our longest running research projects. Our team at Microsoft has been able to take a subatomic particle that has only been theorized until now, and not only observe it, but control it, creating an entirely new material and a new architecture for quantum computing. One that can scale to millions of qubits on a single chip. It will solve problems unsolvable by the combined power of all the world's compute today, and promises to revolutionize fields such as medicine, material science, and our understanding of the natural world. Our first quantum processor based on this architecture is the Majorana 1.
Majorana 1. I think that's how you say it, Majorana 1. Now is a great time to explore what it means to be a quantum researcher, quantum computing scientist. So, a quantum computing researcher develops and studies quantum algorithms and systems that can potentially solve complex problems far beyond the capabilities of classical computers. This role exists at the intersection of physics, computer science, math, and engineering. So, very, very, very complicated, but there's a lot of promise for this new technology to solve impossible problems. And I'm not going to act like I'm an expert and I know what this means because I was doing a lot of research and I'm like, wow, like this makes no sense. Let me watch another YouTube video or let me read another article. But it has a lot of promise that I feel like if you're not exposed to it now, by the time it has its shiny moment, like, generative AI is having right now, it might be kind of too late to jump on that bandwagon because everybody has already explored it and I don't want us to be late. So let's jump right on it if you're interested in this. A major misconception with quantum computers is that Quantum computers will simply be faster versions of classical computers. And a classical computer is basically the computers that we have right now, whether that's your laptop or your phone. That's what it really means. But in reality, quantum computers operate on a fundamentally different principle using quantum bits or qubits that exist in multiple states simultaneously thanks to the quantum mechanical properties of superposition and entanglement. They excel at specific types of problems rather than being universal replacement of classical computers. So basically what all that means is that classical computers are, for example, let's say cars, right? And quantum computers are going to be spaceships, right? You can't deck a car, no matter how fancy, no matter how fast, if it's a Ferrari, if it's, a Lamborghini, whatever it is, it can never really just go to the moon because it's not equipped to travel at light speed. It's not equipped to go into space. And so classical computers are not just like, oh, they're going to replace, they're going to be replaced by quantum computers. Like, no, 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 no. We're talking about two different things and two different computing levels that a lot of people cannot even fathom. And so quantum computers are not going to replace classical computers or classic computers, but basically they're going to have their own lane because they're going to solve so many complex problems that we can't even fathom or even try to solve with using classical or classic computers. Being a quantum computer researcher or scientist has its pros. So, one of the first benefits or pros is that the field offers the opportunity to work with honestly very groundbreaking technology that could revolutionize everything from drug discovery to cryptography, finance modeling, and material science. There are a lot of skills needed to thrive in this role, and that's not a surprise because this is a very, very important job role. But a few things to keep in mind, you definitely need to have a strong academic background. So, a strong background in quantum mechanics, linear algebra, calculus, and obviously for most of the jobs and even internships that I saw for quantum computing scientists, you definitely have to have a PhD degree. So you got to be in college. You got to keep upskilling in the sense of doing that through education. You can't really take a course, you can't really take a, certification for this type of job. You have to have deep problem solving skills and be an innovative thinker. Also, you want to make sure that you have a deep understanding of quantum algorithms, quantum information theory, quantum hardware, and so much more. And lastly, I think it's important to have the ability to collaborate with other folks in different disciplines, right? When it comes to quantum computers and quantum research, you're not just dealing with people who are great with, computer science or mechanical engineering. You're dealing with people who are physicists and have a lot of experience in other areas. So being able to work with a diverse team is definitely necessary. Now that we've talked about some of the pros and some of the benefits, let's talk about some of the drawbacks. Number one, the field is still very, very new. It's in its early stages with uncertain timelines for commercial viability, which can lead to periods of very slow progress and potential frustration. I mentioned earlier the Myron 01, which took 20 years. They've been working on that chip for almost 20 years, creating a new atom, which is like literally mind blowing. And so a lot of the work that's being done right now, we're probably not going to see the benefits till a few years from now, right? So you have to be someone willing to have delayed gratification to see your work come to light, but that is just something that some people are okay with and some people are not. So just keep that in mind. And if it's not something that you feel like you want to dedicate, I think low key your life to, this is probably not for you. So just be aware. But if you're someone who is young and you're passionate about groundbreaking technology, emerging tech, then shoot for the stars and look into this career field. Now, speaking of stars, at number two, we have aerospace engineer. A lot of you are probably aware of what an aerospace engineer is, but I wanted to give you more context, so let's jump right into it. Right now, with the commercialization of space, aerospace engineers are at the forefront of one of the most exciting fields in technology, hands down. Their expertise contributes to the future of space exploration, defense systems, and satellite technologies. So, what does an aerospace engineer actually do? This was kind of hard for me to figure out because it varies depending on their expertise, but overall, an aerospace engineer designs, develop, and tests aircraft, spacecraft, satellites, and missiles. This role combines expertise in aerodynamics, material science, propulsion, and structure analysis to create vehicles that safely navigate Earth's atmosphere and the vacuum of space. The average salary for this specific job role is around 105 and 120,000. So that's if you're kind of starting off. But obviously, the more experience that you have, the company that you work for, that salary range can definitely change and increase over time. So, one common misconception about this role is that aerospace engineering primarily involves designing the exterior shapes of aircrafts and spacecraft. But in reality, modern aerospace engineers work on everything from propulsion systems, material to avionics, life support systems, and increasingly autonomous control systems. So basically, they work on the ins and out of an aircraft and not just what goes on the exterior of an aircraft or a spacecraft. So from that description, you can tell that being an electrical engineer or a mechanical engineer is definitely going to come in handy when trying to go down this career path. Outside the salary of this job, obviously, I think the biggest pros or benefit for working in this career field is just kind of like working on something that outlives you. I think being able to work on aircrafts or even spacecraft that has immediate impact on the lives of people is very, very important, but it feels very fulfilling. I know from the mechanical part, it can feel very mundane and people feel like they might not have jobs because of automation and things might take over their jobs. But I think at the very least, being able to see that your job is definitely moving humanity forward in some sense is very fulfilling from my perspective. It might not be if you work in that field, please let me know the truth because from the outside it looks kind of cool. But if it's not that cool, please let us know. Okay, so a few skills needed to thrive in this role. Obviously, you want a strong foundation in engineering principles, particularly fluid dynamics and material science, project management capabilities to help build multi-year projects, having a degree with electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, chemical engineering. Those are things that are going to be very, very essential and very important. And just having experience overall, I think in this situation, just getting your hands dirty in terms of like getting any hands on opportunity is better than nothing at all. So if you're interested, definitely do more research on this role and maybe one day we'll see you go to space. Well, I guess those are astronauts and not aerospace engineers. I'm mixing those two, so my bad. Okay, now diving into the drawbacks or challenges. Number one, projects tend to be long term and high stakes with extensive testing requirements and strict safety regulations that can create high pressure work environments. So, although this sounds fun and engaging and fulfilling, it sounds like there's a lot of stress. I mean, I know every job has stress, but the stakes are high working in this career field, and this is something you need to be aware of. Secondly, the industry can be vulnerable to government funding changes and policy shifts, particularly for defense and space exploration projects. And obviously, with what's going on right now in America with the economy, with the current president, we're seeing that government changes are real. And so that's why I mentioned that I'm happy that there are folks in the private sector that are now building opportunities for people to have this career path. And obviously, no one is completely safe, but it's always good to have options when the government decides to do what they do and change their focus or cut funding. Overall, I feel like this is still an exciting space to be in, and it's very well overlooked because it's not easy per se, but I do feel like this is something that a lot of people in the long run will find it beneficial because if you work in this space, I believe some of the skills are transferable. I think it's much easier. This is just my perspective. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. To go from this environment, right, from being a aerospace engineer to maybe wanting to do software or maybe AI or something different, than going from maybe a software engineer trying to be a electrical engineer or hardware engineer or any of that stuff. So just think about it from that perspective of like, okay, what transferable skills can I have, which direction is much easier if I'm trying to make a career switch, and think of it from that perspective. I think it's always important to have an open mind when thinking about your career at large. All right, moving on to number one on the list. I want to know if you guessed it right. Let me know in the comments if you already know what number one is going to be. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and like this video. I watched an interview recently with the CEO of NVIDIA, which I won't say it blew my mind, but it really changed the way I thought about a lot of things in tech, right? And this is basically what he said.
Everything that moves will be robotic someday, and it will be soon. The idea that we'll be pushing around a lawnmower is already kind of silly. Maybe people do it because it's fun, but there's no need to. And uh, every car is going to be robotic. Humanoid robots, uh, the technology necessary to make it possible, is just around the corner, and so everything that moves will be robotic. And they'll learn how to be a robot in Omniverse Cosmos, and will generate all these physically plausible futures, and the robots will learn from them, and then they'll come into the physical world, and it's exactly the same. A future where you're just surrounded by robots is for certain.
So if you haven't watched that interview with Jensen and CeeLo Abrams, I think that's her name. Definitely go watch it. It's an hour long. It has over 2 million views. It came out, I think, early 2025. It just talks a lot about how tech leaders are seeing the future, especially Jensen. And a few things stuck out to me from that video that I feel like a lot of people need to start paying attention to. Moving on to number one on my list for various reasons, we have a robotics engineer. So basically, a robotics engineer designs, builds, and maintain robotics and robotic systems that perform tasks in manufacturing, healthcare, exploration, and so many other applications. This role combines mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, computer science, and artificial intelligence. So basically, these types of engineers help design machines that can replace human labor in dangerous situations or remove humans from doing repetitive tasks. Plus, this field is highly innovative and offers hands on experience with cutting edge technology. Now, for this role, the average salary starts around $150,000. Yes, $150,000, and can grow for much more based on your experience. One major misconception about the robotics field is that robotics is primarily about building humanoid machines. And we see it in all the movies and all the shows, but in reality, most robots are specialized tools designed for specific applications rather than general purpose humanoids. The most successful and widespread robots are often designed for narrow, well defined tasks in manufacturing, logistics, and increasingly service applications. So I don't think I'm willing to sell anybody on the benefits of becoming a robotics engineer. I think it speaks for itself. But robotics adoption is expanding beyond traditional manufacturing. Like I mentioned, it's expanding into healthcare, agricultural, logistics, service industries, creating diverse opportunities for engineers with specialized knowledge in these domains. So, skills needed to thrive in this role, like I mentioned earlier, you definitely need electrical experience, mechanical engineering experience, programming experience. Basically, you have to be a genius, I think, in some regards. But if you love hardware design, hardware engineering, then this might be the right career path for you. There are some concerns and some challenges that you should be aware of. So, number one, there are ethical concerns about automation and job displacement that can create social tensions around robotics work, requiring engineers to consider the broader impact of their creation. So, like I mentioned, there are people who are concerned that they're going to be put out of a job because of automation and robots. And so instead of worry about being displaced, figure out how you can either work with these machines or create them. There are a lot of people right now who are scared that they don't have, the necessary skills to either keep their jobs because maybe it's manual or it is repetitive. But this is why upskilling matters because at a certain point, your job might get replaced, but if you're empowered to learn about other options, then you don't feel like your job is being taken away. You're going to look into other opportunities to apply your skills working with these machines or working with AI or other emerging technologies. So that's pretty much it for this episode. If you found this analysis and this breakdown helpful, let me know because this was a lot of work and a lot of research, and I want to make sure that's beneficial to you. And if you want me to do more deep dives into the specific tech careers, that's something that I can definitely do. I can bring in guests to talk more about their experiences in this field so you can get a more practical and a more real analysis of what it looks like from a day-to-day perspective. And also, I didn't mention the obvious roles like AI engineer or cloud engineer because I feel like there's just so much information online about those job roles. So if you're still interested in those job roles, definitely check them out. I'm not saying that you should not look at those areas. I'm already assuming that you know those areas in terms of like you already know those tech jobs exist, and just wanted to shed some light into other jobs that are not really talked about. So I hope this was helpful. So thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode of the Tech Unlock podcast.